They started as friends, mentor and student, two of the most brilliant minds in the history of psychology, Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud. At first, they shared the same mission: to explore the unconscious, to understand the mind, to unlock human behavior. But then, something broke. Their friendship shattered, their theories split, and the world of psychology would never be the same. Because while Freud looked into the darkness of desire and repression, Jung looked into the soul, into symbols, archetypes, dreams, and the sacred. This is not just a story of two men, it's a story of two worldviews, and why their divide still shapes how we see ourselves today. Freud believed that the human psyche was driven by one thing: desire, especially repressed sexual desire. To him, our problems came from the conflict between our primitive instincts and the rules of society. He created the model of the id, ego, and superego, a system where the id wanted pleasure, the superego wanted control, and the ego tried to keep peace. Freud saw the unconscious as a storage room of forbidden urges, things we pushed down, things we were ashamed of. But Jung saw something deeper. He believed that the unconscious wasn't just personal, it was collective, a universal force, filled not only with repression, but with meaning, patterns, and ancient wisdom. Where Freud saw disease, Jung saw potential. Where Freud saw the mind as a battlefield of impulses, Jung saw it as a mystery to be integrated. They didn't just disagree on theory, they disagreed on the soul. Freud rejected spirituality. He believed religion was an illusion, a collective neurosis humans invented to cope with fear. But Jung, he believed the spiritual experience was central to healing. He said, people don't just want to be happy, they want meaning. Freud diagnosed, Jung listened. Freud wanted to cure, Jung wanted to understand. And over time, their paths grew further apart, until they could no longer walk together. Freud saw Jung's ideas as mystical, unscientific, dangerous. Jung saw Freud's ideas as narrow, incomplete, too focused on pathology. Their final letters were cold, distant. The bond was broken. But what emerged from that break shaped the modern world. Freud gave us psychoanalysis, the idea that talking heals, that childhood shapes adulthood, that the unconscious affects behavior. Jung gave us archetypes, the collective unconscious, synchronicity, shadow work, the concept of individuation, tools that now live in therapy, in spirituality, in art, in coaching, in dreams. Freud taught us how to uncover pain. Jung taught us how to transform it. Freud wanted you to be functional. Jung wanted you to be whole, and both were right in their own way, because you are both impulse and meaning, both biology and mystery, both instinct and soul. Jung once said that no tree can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. Freud explored the roots, Jung explored the sky, and maybe to truly heal, we need both. We need to face our wounds, as Freud taught, and also search for our purpose. As Jung insisted, we need to understand our trauma, but also reclaim our power. We need to be seen, not just as problems to fix, but as people with stories, symbols, and infinite potential. So why does this divide still matter? Because every day we live this tension, the tension between what hurts and what heals, between what's scientific and what's sacred, between fixing the surface and listening to the soul. You don't have to choose a side, you have to listen to both. There are moments in life when you need a Freudian lens to understand why you repeat patterns, why your childhood matters, why your defense mechanisms show up. And there are moments when you need Jung's vision, to see your pain as myth, to decode your dreams, to follow the signs, to make sense of your spiritual longing. Freud looked backward, to your past. Jung looked inward, to your soul, and together they created a map that still guides us. So if you feel torn between reason and intuition, between science and spirit, between logic and emotion, know that this conflict is ancient, and it's not something to fix, it's something to honor, because true healing happens at the edge, where Freud's fire meets Jung's light. This is the legacy of two giants, and the invitation is not to follow them, but to understand them, and from there, to follow yourself. But let's go deeper into their contrasts, not just intellectually, but emotionally. Freud's world was built on conflict. He believed that humans were driven by primitive urges, especially the desire for sex and power. To him, the unconscious was a prison of instincts. Civilization, he said, was necessary to tame our inner chaos, but it came at a cost: repression. Repression leads to neurosis. So his goal in therapy was to dig into your early childhood, find the trauma, and make you aware of your suppressed desires. Jung agreed to a point. He too believed in the power of the unconscious, but he didn't see it only as a place of trauma. He saw it as a source of creativity. Sacred place, not just a psychological basement full of shame, but a temple filled with symbolic meaning. This is why Jung was fascinated with mythology. He traveled the world. He studied cultures, religions, folklore, because he believed these ancient stories weren't fiction. They were maps of the human soul. Archetypes for Jung were universal roles that exist in every human being, no matter where you were born or what language you speak. The hero, the mother, the trickster, the shadow. These live in your unconscious, and they shape how you see the world, how you relate to others, how you evolve. Freud thought this was nonsense. To him, mythology had no place in science. Therapy needed structure, diagnosis, interpretation. But Jung said, healing is not a formula, it's a journey. That's why his work was harder to quantify, but more deeply felt. Freud gave you tools to explain behavior. Jung gave you tools to transform identity. That difference changed everything. Let's take an example. Imagine a woman struggling with relationships. Freud might say she is repeating a childhood dynamic with her father. She's attracted to men who are emotionally unavailable because it's familiar. Jung might say, yes, but there's more. She's being called into a deeper journey of individuation. She's meeting her inner masculine, her animus, and through that pattern, she's being asked to integrate parts of herself she's never known. Strength, sovereignty, clarity. Both are true. One sees the problem. The other sees the transformation. And in therapy today, many approaches combine both. We work with trauma, and also with symbolism. We talk about the past, but we also explore the dream, we name the pattern, and we also follow the myth beneath it. This integration is what Jung and Freud never got to reach together, but it's what we're doing now as a culture that's awakening, because we've learned that humans are not machines. We are mysteries, and healing is not linear, it's alchemical. Jung and Freud disagreed, but their tension gave birth to a deeper truth, that healing requires both science and soul. You need structure. You also need surrender. You need understanding, and you need meaning. You need a map, but you also need a mirror, and maybe, just maybe, the greatest therapy is not choosing one over the other, but honoring the paradox between them. In the end, Freud tried to explain the psyche. Jung tried to experience it. Freud gave us the foundation. Jung gave us the expansion. And together, they gave us the invitation to know ourselves, not just as bodies or brains, but as living symbols, stories, souls. So next time you ask, why am I like this? Look inward, look backward, and then look beyond. Because the answer isn't just in your past, it's in your pattern, your myth, your mirror. That's the gift these two gave us in conflict, yes, but also in creation, the science of the mind and the mystery of the soul. That is the full picture.